So now we have talked about how to put up a contact list. We've also had our entire discussion about how to make a template. Now once you have designed who to send, what to send, let's see how do you actually send it from the platform. So all you gotta do is click on create new broadcast over here, this button. In your broadcast tab, broadcast history, you can also go on schedule broadcast and do the same, right? For now, I'll just go back to broadcast history, this particular section will show you the list of all the broadcasts that you have done from the platform. Now let's click on create new broadcast. It'll bring you to a screen like this. First thing that you have to do is give this broadcast a name. Again, the name of the broadcast is just for your reference, so it can be anything. I'll name it something like training test. Then you choose the target channel. Since we are opting for WhatsApp as the target channel, we choose it over here. Since the contact list that you have uploaded has WhatsApp numbers on it, so your target channel would be WhatsApp. And then you'll choose the broadcast type as send template message, because eventually you're going to send the template. You'll select the template which you just got approved, which was the training template 1 for us in the case. Now what I want to also mention is these other things, which is send message, trigger a path. They won't work for users who you're reaching out to the first time, because as I mentioned, on Meta's end, the rules say that if you're reaching out to a new customer, or if you're reaching out to a customer who's interacted with your bot, but after 24 hours, you should always reach out to them through a template. Right? So it's very important to understand that broadcasts should always be done in the broadcast type of send template message rather than a send message or a trigger a path. Now, as I mentioned, that whatever would be the placeholders in the template that you select will pop up over here. For example, if I want to send an image, the template that we had an image header in it. So this would be the final image that the end user will receive when you attach an image over here. So I'll just click on browse. It'll open my desktop or the system that you're using. You can choose the final image that you want to attach with it. Let's say I attach this one image. I click on open. It comes up over here, right? Then I go in body parameter. Now if you remember, the body parameter which we got for this template was something like hey, hi, and then the person's name. So we know that in the contact list, whatever column you have configured this out on, if you have reference through the contact list video, that column for us was user.first_name. I mean, first_name was the column, but on broadcast, when you upload a contact list, there's an attribute created which always has a user.prefix to it. Similarly, I can call city, which will have a user.city. Right? So it's basically the same column, but it will have user dot as a prefix when you're calling it as an attribute. Okay. Now, just for your reference, you don't need to call exactly these two attributes. You will be calling the column name that you want to pass. If your column name was something else in the contact list that you uploaded, the data that you want to, take out from that particular user and then pass it in the broadcast, you'll call that column name over here. Similarly for other body parameters as well. Then you will specify for the buttons. Now, as I mentioned, a quick reply type of button allows you to trigger a path. But what we also give you as an option is not only to trigger a path, but to trigger a path and set an attribute. How do you do that? What does that mean? So what it means is, first of all, you will be able to choose a path that you want to trigger. Let's say I want to trigger this path. And let's say I have an attribute on the system. This attribute can be anything. Let's say I have an attribute called as first or something like button_clicked. In case if it's an existing attribute, you'll see it in the drop down. If it is not, you'll see a create option right here itself. I'll create this button_clicked attribute. I can attach any value to it, something like yes, something like no, something like 1, right? Now, the use case would be that whenever someone would click on this button, right? This attribute would automatically get set for that user with this exact value that you put here. Let me put the value 1 for now. Okay. Similarly, this is the first button, which was click here. You also added another button, if you remember, which was stop promotions, let's say, right? Now, for stop promotions, what we can always do is go on path and attribute again. Let's say, for example, and choose a path, set an attribute or value. In case if you don't want to choose an attribute or set an attribute on this particular button, you can just choose path as an option. You should make a stop promotions exclusive path in order to trigger those particular messages, and that's how you configure the button. So you can either just trigger a path or trigger a path and also associate an attribute in that button, so that anybody who clicks on that button automatically gets a value associated with the attribute to that user. You'll come down, you'll see here. So if you remember, this was our template. So it said hi, this was a variable that we created. You could have also created the variable somewhere else in case if this was not the test template that you're looking for. All I'm saying is the value that you finally want to call in that variable, you must have put that value in the contact list, right? So now whichever column that value is in, just call that column as an attribute. It will have user dot as a prefix, and you'll call the actual dynamic or the variable value from the contact list itself. After that, it comes to the point where you decide if you want to send it to a contact list or to a user segment. Currently we are doing it for contact list, so we'll choose contact list. In case if you were doing it for a user segment, you could have gone ahead and chosen the user segment over here. Now the target contact list will be this particular contact list which I have. You can choose the contact list that you want to do this broadcast on. Next, what would be the opt-out button? Since you know that you have two buttons, which of these two buttons are going to act like an opt-out button? Again, this is not a necessary thing. This would not come up in case if you don't want to put a WhatsApp button. Let's say if you don't want to use an opt-out button, you can definitely skip this opt-out button. Okay, for now, I'll go ahead and choose the stop promotions button as the opt-out button. After you have put up the contact list, and as I was mentioning, once you choose the button that you want to use for stop promotions, then you come down over here. Next, you have exclude users who have opted out. Why is this important? Let's say you did a broadcast for properties in India to a certain contact list. There would be people who clicked on stop promotions. But next time, to the same contact list, you are doing another broadcast, but not for properties in India, but for properties in Dubai. They might be interested in it, and it could be a potential lead for you in the business use case. We do not want you to lose that lead completely out. So what we have done is given you an optional toggle here, where if you turn this on, then and then only the people who clicked on opt out the last time would get opted out. But if you do not toggle this on, even if the people who clicked on stop promotions the last time in the same contact list would still receive this other broadcast, right? And this toggle is just so that you don't lose that lead completely and can use it in case if the broadcast that you did previously and the one that you're doing currently is not at all related, right? For now, let's say I want to exclude the people who opted out. I'll click on this toggle over here. Now, in broadcast, you have your number quality. Every time you register the number, it starts with 1000 messages per day. Then it upgrades after you have done successful broadcast over multiple days. It goes to 10,000 per day. Then it goes to 100,000 per day, and then it goes to unlimited per day, right? But this is over the point that yes, you have a verified Facebook Business Manager attached with your number. But let's say, for example, your current limit is 1000. But the contact list has 7,600 numbers, right? So what we have done is to make your work easy. You can click on split your broadcast into multiple sets. What it actually does is it automatically reads what your current limit is of sending the numbers. It compares it with the list of numbers there in your contact list that you have chosen over here, and it makes the set out of it. So for example, if my limit is 1000 and the contact list that I uploaded has 7,600 numbers, it will automatically make 8 different sets. The first one would have the 1000 first numbers, then it will have 1001 to 2000, 2001 to 3000, similarly till 7000, and then the final set would have the last 600 numbers, right? Then you can choose which date you want to exactly send this on and what time you want to exactly send this on. Because when we say one day, it's a rolling time. So when we say a rolling time, what we exactly mean is if I did a broadcast today at 4 p.m, next my limit will get refreshed tomorrow at 4 p.m. Right? It won't get refreshed at 12 o'clock midnight. It would only and only get refreshed after a 24-hour rolling window. So you can set when you want to send all those sets, the date and time over here. For now, let's say I do not want to split my broadcast. I can just put this checkbox off and I can have this send now, or I can schedule it for a later time. If you want to send it all at one go, you can still schedule it for a particular time, which can be once, daily, weekly and monthly, which is basically recurring broadcast, right? So you can have a recurring broadcast as well. But for now, let's say I'm going to send it once rather than sending it daily. You can see from what time to what time, what date, you can set all of that. If you want to do it weekly, what date, time, all those certain things you can set up over here. But for now, let's say I want to do it once and I don't want to schedule it but send it now. So I'll click on send now, click on over here, which is your publish broadcast, the first button. I'll click on publish broadcast. It'll give me this kind of a broadcast confirmation screen. I'll click on send, and the moment I send, it would say broadcast published successfully. Just give it like 10 to 15 seconds. Then go ahead, refresh the page. You would automatically see the broadcast that you did appearing over here, right? Which is training test. Now, depending on what is the target user size and all that, these details will get populated in some time. But since it is currently very less number of target users, if I come back over here, this is the exact template. So this is the image, the body, and if you see, it actually fetched my name. It actually fetched my city from the contact list because I called those attributes, and I didn't have to configure it through a static value. It has those two buttons. If I click here, since we attached it with welcome new user, it will automatically start the bot for me. And this is how exactly you go ahead and do a broadcast. Now, once your broadcast is done, what you can also do is come back over here, refresh this out. You can click on these hamburger menu and view the broadcast, which will tell you when was it, how many did it fail, what were the target users, and all those button counts. What you can also do is export the broadcast. When you export the broadcast, it gives you the details in an CSV file telling you what number did it fail for, why did it fail, who clicked on a button, who gave a reply, all those broadcast analytics that you can download for every broadcast through the export broadcast option right over here, right? And in case if there are any failures, you'll be able to see all those failures in the API logs. So the API logs would have something like broadcast. When it would be a success, it would say that it was a success like this. But if it would be a failure in the response body, so you'll click on that particular broadcast and you'll see this request body. You'll have to come to response body to see what was the exact reason of the failure right over here in the response body, right? So this is what it takes to send a broadcast from the platform, and this is the overall explanation. I hope this helps. Thank you.